Hello and welcome to another episode of If My Feet Could Talk. I'm your host, Owen, also known as the Ultra Runner Matlow. It's been a while since my last episode, which was an absolute belter, by the way. There was so much love for it afterwards. It's been actually quite great. So a little catch up with me. It's been a month since obviously we last caught up when I celebrated my 1000th day of running every day. Training has shifted up to the next big race, which is the Southwest Traverse at the end of May. It just so happens that I've come down full of cold, not the vid before anyone thinks otherwise, which is always obviously great timing. So obviously I'll be taking it easy over the next few days until I can shift it. I'm on 1,033 days at the time of recording this of running every day. So getting close to that 3-year milestone. But we'll move on now to the next episode. My next guest is I think, one of the best runners on the circuit, a former international road marathon runner. She now obviously finds herself on mountain trails and many ultra marathons. You'll see her. Listeners and watchers, I give you the amazing Holly Stables. Here we go. We are recording. Hello and welcome, Holly, to the podcast. How are you doing, and how's the Stables family? All good?
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah, we're struggling on.
You're struggling on. How's the dog? More important.
Oh, he's good. He's just here.
There he is.
But yeah, he's just his usual arse of a self, really. Yeah, he'll probably start barking in a minute because someone will not make a noise.
That's all right. That's a part of live recording and stuff. It's the realities of it.
Exactly.
So I know you're not a stranger to podcasts, as you're one of the co-hosts of the popular Marathon Talk podcast with Martin Yelling. So a big thank you for giving up your time to chat with me today. I know it's quite busy at the moment for you at the moment. So there may be a few people who haven't seen or heard of you before. So can you give us a brief insight on who you are and what you do?
So I am Holly Stables now. I was Holly Rush. I was Holly May before that, actually, very early on. And I'm the ASICS front runner community manager for the UK. I have done that for maybe 3 or 4 years now. I'm also a coach to not many people, a handful of people. We also have our online coaching business as well, where we do e-guides and programs. And I'm also a coach for the app Runkeeper. And I'm also an athlete myself. I call myself athlete. I guess I am still. I was more elite than I am now. So, but I still race. So that's me.
That you do, and you race very well. So let's go back all those years now. So where did you grow up as a child, and were you a sporty kid?
So I grew up in Somerset, where I live now. I actually grew up in sort of in the middle of nowhere. So my father was a gamekeeper. So I was brought up on a farm that was literally in the middle of nowhere. I had a really lovely upbringing until my parents got divorced. Well, not until, I mean, it was fine then, but they divorced and obviously I had to move away. But so I was brought up on a farm. My love was animals, still is really. I wasn't into any sport. In fact, I absolutely hated sport at school. The only sport I did play was rugby, women's rugby, which I really loved. But I didn't really do any running or anything like that. And I definitely didn't like, with the exception of rugby, I didn't like team sports at all. And I probably still don't actually. And so yeah, and my love was horses. So I was just, yeah, my love was horses. I had horses at the farm, and dogs and things like that. And actually I worked at a racing yard, and that's what I did when I first started doing any sort of sport. I actually worked in Newmarket for a bit at stables, and weekends I would ride out for a local trainer, and I wasn't doing any running at all. And I certainly wasn't in my early 20s any constructively. It wasn't until I went to university, that's when I did do the marathon. So I say early 20s, I did do a marathon then, but I wasn't a runner as such. And it wasn't until my late 20s that I sort of got back into running. I did a marathon once, and that was it.
So when you're in school, did you like get forced to do the cross country and stuff like that, like most kids did? And like, that's not for me.
No, I was one of those kids that started the cross country. I mean, they probably don't do this now. So I went to Wells Blue School, if anyone knows that school in Wells, and we would be sent out. It's like there's a lot of countryside around us. We'd be sent out from the school to do our cross country. Like none of the teachers would be around. They'd be like, right, go up there. This is the route you got around the quarry, and then come back. And I was one of the kids that would get to the end, like get out of their eyesight, wait, and we'd sit on a rock or something. And then we would wait till they came round and then join them coming back. That was the extent of my athletics.
That's ingenuity. That's not cheating.
Yeah.
That's ingenuity. That at that age.
I mean, why wouldn't you? They're not going to see, are they?
No, that is true. I never got on with cross country myself. It was one of the things that put me off cross country was school, and I still don't like it now, even though I like off road running, which is really strange. Were there any family members that were sporting your family that possibly you've inherited some sort of sportiness, even though it came out later?
Yeah. Well, my father was very fit. In fact, he was a pro footballer for a bit before he started gamekeeping. So he was a really fit guy and loved sport, but he wasn't a runner as such. No one, like my mum wasn't a runner either. My granddad was a runner, but really apart from that, no. I mean, my family background was football or boxing, actually. So a lot of my uncles they're all army, so they did a lot of schoolboy boxing as well, and in the army they did that. But no, there wasn't any running in the family. I was probably the first one, really.
Okay. So what did you do post school years? You sort of touched on it briefly there, but when you left school, what did you get up to?
So when I was at university, I started working at Putney Leisure Centre because I was at university in London. So I started working there because I joined the gym, and I wanted to get free membership because I had no money, never had any money. So I did my basic qualifications and I started working there. And so from there, I did sort of fall in love. That's when I sort of started falling in love with running or sort of sport as such, not individual sports. And so from there, after I did my degree, which I did a geography degree, it had nothing to do with sport. That's when I decided to go straight from there to go off and do my sports qualifications. So I went on and did Premier, which is at the time it still is one of the best personal training sort of sports training courses. So I went off and did a residential course with that, and I went on to do sports therapy and all of that sort of stuff. And so I went and from there I went on and got a job at a big new leisure centre in Oxford. So I went and worked there, and I managed the gym there, and that's where it all started. I mean, I went straight into sports jobs, really, and then I moved back to Bath, and I managed a health club here, and that's where I stayed for quite a while. And then when I was back in Bath, I did my master's in sports coaching, and other sort of qualifications. So I've really actually always worked in sport. I've been really, really lucky, and never really used my degree.
So you sort of threw yourself into the sporting world without actually being full on sporty yourself at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I was running marathons. So I did my first marathon when I was in London because I'd watched London Marathon, and I just said, I mean, I've told the story so many times, but I was like standing on the side watching the marathon with a pint of Stella in my hand
As you
and a
do.
burger. And I said to everyone, like, oh, I'm going to do this next year. Because I realized that obviously it wasn't all just elite people running, it was all sorts of different people. And I thought, I think you're sort of either that sort of person where you look at it and go, this is my idea of hell, or like, oh, I'm going to give this a go, it looks really cool. So I said I was going to do it, and I did it. And I did it the next year, which was, I always forget, it's either 97 or 98 was the first year I did it. It was a horrible year, it pissed it down with rain. The year before was really hot and sunny, hence I was standing outside with a pint of Stella. So I did it the next year, and it rained and everything rubbed because I was wearing cotton t-shirt and I was wearing rugby shorts.
Was that a Mars marathon or a Flora marathon back then?
Flora.
Flora, it was Flora back then.
Yeah.
And did you have to enter the ballot? Was it?
No, I did it for charity. I did it for Task Force, which of course was a nightmare as well, because I had to raise so much money, which as a student, I would go to parties with this. This is back in the day when you had like a sponsorship form, a paper sponsorship form. So you go to parties, I'd get really ratted, passed around this form, get people to sign it, never got the money from them, and then I ended up having to find the money myself towards the end to get the place. I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, this was back in the day when I probably had to make £4,500, but that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I did it for charity. So I was really lucky to do that. But yes, it was a rude awakening to running.
So
and that's
when you took on that charity place, was that the first time you really started getting into running and start finding your love for running?
Oh yeah, literally. So the year before, when I said I was going to do it, I got an entry, and then I started training, I don't know how many weeks in advance. That's when I joined Putney Leisure Centre, because I thought I better join a gym or something, because I had no idea. It's funny because I obviously realised I know lots of stuff now just from doing it, not because I'm, just because I've done it so much. Whereas I realise when I say all this stuff, there'll be a lot of people who don't know any of this stuff. So it is actually very sort of relevant. So I had no idea what I was doing. I entered it was like the Leisure Centre 5K, which I did, and I entered Bath Half, which was the first sort of proper race I'd ever done, because it was my local one. Again, I wore totally inappropriate clothing for that. And then I did London Marathon, and the longest run I'd done for London Marathon was 15 miles. So I just thought, I'll just do it. So yeah, so that was really the only time I'd ever started running. And I had no plan. I just ran. I certainly didn't do any speed work or anything like that. I just ran.
And how was that first race in Bath? Your first ever race?
Do you know, I can't even remember. It's so long ago. I've got a picture of myself coming into the finish line, like with my arms in the air, smiling. So obviously it can't have been that bad.
No, you obviously enjoyed it a little bit.
Yeah, but the marathon I do remember quite vividly, because the weather was so awful, and I remember everything rubbed so badly. I mean, I couldn't wear a bra for about a week afterwards. I rubbed so badly. But I do remember thinking, when I do this, my aim is to not walk. So just try and run it all, like doesn't matter what pace, but just run it, and get to the finish. And that's what I did. I had no idea about times, what was good or not. I just wanted to finish. And there's pictures of me, because all my family came, my granddad and my grandma, and there's pictures of me in my full blanket, and my ridiculous clothing. And I'm just beaming. And I remember going back to my flat in London that I shared with my boyfriend, and they all came back, and there wasn't very much room in the flat. So I sat on the floor to let everyone else sit on the sofa. And we were all drinking, I think they bought some champagne. We had champagne, and we were watching the highlights on TV, and I was chatting away, and I turned around and they were all asleep. And I thought that was so funny, because I thought, I'm the one that's just done the marathon. And of course, the next day I could not get down the stairs. There was all these lessons that obviously I know about now, but it was just all just new to me.
So I remember the London Marathon being my first marathon when I did couch to marathon. So pretty much a bit like you. And I remember that feeling of standing on that start line with thousands and thousands of people. Can you remember that feeling of that first time you stood on that marathon start line, what it was like for you? I know it's pissing down rain, but
actually I don't think it was pissing down rain when I started it. What I do remember now, just thinking about it, I do remember that that it took forever to get over the start line, because I was right at the back and we had to snake through, and I had no idea about that. And it wasn't until I realized we'd gone under the start line that we started. So yeah, I mean, it took probably 15 minutes or something.
which feels like an eternity as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, which would like now would be like, what the hell? But yeah, so that's what I remember. So I don't remember, there wasn't that sort of feeling when you're on a start like now and in a local half marathon or something and you're like, oh, go. It wasn't like that. It was like, go, and then nothing happened. And then you walk forward a bit, then you walk forward a bit. So that was it. But honestly, it's like, how many years ago is that? 25 years ago.
Yeah, and obviously when you cross that line, apart from chafed pretty much down to the bone,
Yeah.
how did it feel, that the fact that you managed to achieve what you set out to achieve, that finish line?
Oh, I was elated. I mean, but that's where it all started. That's when my obsession started, really. It was really bad that year. And I completely overdid it. And then I backed off, and then I didn't fall out of love of running, but life took over, and that's when I started working in the health clubs and stuff. So I started sort of going down other avenues. But that marathon was definitely the turning point.
So moving forward, you obviously you started training for another marathon and more races, and you started to look into your training and what you were eating. Is it safe to say that you found an unhealthy physical and mental relationship with food and training?
Yeah, I mean, it probably wasn't food so much. Well, it did turn out to be food, but I mean, I definitely had an exercise addiction, which manifested itself in being constantly obsessed by how many calories I was burning. This was, a lot of my stuff was gym based, remember, because I was in a gym. I did a lot of training on treadmills, and I was obsessed with, I had to burn so many calories a day. And that was like so what happened is I started that race I did, I was in 97 or whenever it was, 98, where I just had no idea, didn't care about what size I was or anything like that. I was completely happy. And then I think what happened is after that, I kept on training and I started losing weight without even realize, like trying. And I started losing weight, and that turned a switch in my brain for some reason. And I started getting faster. So give into context, that first marathon I did just under 4 hours. So 3:57 or 3:59, something like that. And then the next year I went to do it and I ran like 3:15 or something. And I broke my foot as well, which is another reason, because I'd been under fueling, which was basically RED-S then, or female athlete triad. So within that year, I'd gone completely mad, and I'd had no one to tell me otherwise. So I thought more was better. And so I would train more. I would burn more, more calories. But it wasn't like I trained, like do speed work and stuff, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I would just do more. So I would do more cardio. I didn't do any weight training. I just did more cardio. And then I'd start looking at what I was eating. So I just thought, well, actually, if I eat less here, or I get the less calorific thing here, then that will help. And then before you know it, it's all encompassing, it just takes over your life. All I thought about was when am I going to go to the gym again, how many steps I'm going to do. I say steps, we didn't have stuff like that, but how much activity can I do, where can I walk to, how can I restrict in this way, blah blah blah. And that wasn't good. And
this is pre-social media time, so it's not as if you were seeing people on Instagram doing exactly the same. So you had no one. It was literally and I think this was just you, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I think that also people say stuff to you like, "Oh, you're looking really good," or "Oh, you've lost weight," or I remember when I first went to the gym, the first time I joined, and the gym instructor used to have things called gym inductions. I don't know if they do them now, probably not, where they show you how to use machines and stuff like that. I think most people just get in and do it. And so I had my gym induction, and I went with my friend, and there was probably 10 of us in this gym induction. And the guy said, the gym instructor said, "Okay, do you want to get on the treadmills? And does someone want to get on the treadmill, and we'll start it and show you." So I went on the treadmill, and he said, which is something you would never do now, he said, "How much do you weigh? Because you have to put it onto the treadmill." And I told him I had no idea, but I basically said I was like way less than I was. And he just went, "Really?" Like that, because I was probably, I don't know how much I weighed, 10 stone or so. I don't even know. But and then he said to me, "Really? Are you sure?" And was like, it was awful. I was in front of all these people, and he just made me feel shit.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I just don't think that would happen now, but that's what did.
Well, you'd like to think it wouldn't happen now, but body shaming still goes on, doesn't it?
I know, exactly. And it's stuff like that. There was just loads of things, that you just, I don't know whether you can pinpoint that. That didn't make it me be funny about my food, but it's sort of, you know, when you see yourself losing weight and changing shape, it can really switch on in your head, and it is an actual thing. It can change your sort of mind chemistry, and you can start seeing yourself differently. And that's the thing, I had such mad body dysmorphia towards the end. You know, I thought I was fat when I really wasn't. I was really underweight, and I was getting injuries. My periods had stopped. You know, there was just so many glaring things, you know.
So how did you deal with all that? How did you recover? And
well, I dealt with it to start with by just covering it up and just not showing that I was under eating, because in the evenings I would eat like a proper meal, but in the day I would restrict all day because there would be no one there seeing that. I'm sure people in the gym saw it, that I was constantly there, like sweating on machines. And it wasn't even like I was doing proper training. It would just be like, I'm just going to cross trainer for like an hour, even though I'm not really working hard enough. But because the cross trainer told me I burn 800 calories, which clearly I didn't either, then that made me feel better, and I had to hit that quota. The other thing I'd say, at that time, there was quite a few people in the gym who were similar. So we were like quite unhealthy group of people, women, doing the same thing. And so it validated what you were doing. So that, I guess that was my social media. It was being there. God knows if social media had been on as well, I'd just been way worse. But I basically, I mean, this went on for a long time. I can't even, people ask me this and I can't even remember the timeline, but even when I did recover my weight and get better, it took me a long time to get over, you know, being under eating and over exercising for a long period of time. You know, I didn't have periods for 8 years despite regaining my weight. There was lots of issues, you know. And as a result, I had really bad bone density, which I've managed to reverse in my hips and almost in my back, which is amazing. But that's taken years of work.
Because of that, just a quick question: did that affect your running style, the way you ran at that point?
No.
Your style wasn't.
Oh, I've always been like gaits wise pretty good. Yeah, no, I'm pretty good. I'm a future runner. I mean, I had stress fractures because I was under fueling.
Yeah.
Not because I had a bad running gait or anything. Oh, and I wore racing flats pretty much all the time because they were light, so therefore I'd run faster. It's insane. And I ran on roads and pavements all the time, especially pavements. People don't realize pavements are concrete.
Yeah.
That's tarmac, and actually tarmac is slightly more forgiving. But I ran on pavements all the time, or treadmills in racing flats. I never went off road.
Pre carbon shoes them as well, racing flats.
Yeah, and my racing flats were as like, basically, I say racing flats because they were like paper thin. I used to wear a shoe called, and it was Asics actually, Tiger Paws, which were basically like, they're like, I don't know, Converse thick, you know?
Yeah, I've still got a pair of racing flats, which I blow off the dust every so often for a fast 5K tarmac for once in a while, but
my God, I think they feel awful now. Actually, at the time I was obsessed about having really like responsive light daps that I could just bounce off the floor, but now I'm too old and my shock absorbers are completely, you know, shot. I need some cushioning.
So moving on from there, you've changed the way you look at training and the way you eat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And ultimately you qualified for the international vest in road marathons. What was it like to be part of the Commonwealth Games, in Delhi? And what does it mean to you to have international vests to your name?
Well, my first international vest was actually in Singapore, the marathon, but my first games was the European Championships for Great Britain. And then from there, I qualified to go to the Commonwealth Games for England, which was, I mean, I never ever expected to be anywhere near that sort of standard. And let's be clear, the standard that I was running then wouldn't get me into the Commonwealth Games now or the Europeans. But at the time, I was ranked consistently 6th or 7th in the country at marathon, which was, you know, great. And as a result, I got selected to go to, there was some sort of friendly internationals, which were great, which means it's a great sort of stepping stone to go to, especially a mixed sport event, you know, like the Commonwealth Games, so it's very different. to going to just a European, an athletics championships. But yeah, to go to those were, the trials in 2010 for the European champs were London Marathon. And, we all knew what we had to do. I already had the qualifying time, but so did other girls. And I had to come in the top 6 at London Marathon to be possibly selected, and that even wasn't a certainty. So in the race, I mean, that was probably one of the most exciting races. We were running as a group for a long period of time. Everyone's checking each other out. Who's going to go? And then one goes, and the next goes, and you're like, oh, hang on a minute, there's only like 3 of us left or whatever. And so that was really exciting. And so to get in the top 6 that year and get the qualifying time again, and then get the call as I was at Paddington Station waiting to get on the train to say you've been selected, like that was the biggest. I couldn't believe it. And then
you weren't a young lassie then either. You weren't like a really young elite athlete.
No, I was what, 31, 32, maybe 33, something like that. Yeah.
So it came to you like later on in life. That must have been something different if you're racing against younger athletes as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say that there was Jo Wilkinson, there was Michelle Roscoe. They were all older. We weren't all such. Helen Davies. We were a reasonably older team, actually. But I hadn't really started taking it seriously until I was like 26, 27. So it was about right, I think, sort of 6 years of training. I say properly training, but I was injured every year with stress fractures. So I wasn't massively consistent, which is one thing that I would like to have changed. I would love to have had some consistency to see what I could have ran, but that didn't happen.
So when did you lose the love for the road marathons? And why was that?
So that was probably after the Europeans and then the Commonwealth Games in October. That was a big year. Like, we'd have 3 big marathons in a year, which like now I'd be like, oh yeah, I do like marathons, whatever. But then that was a lot. I was really tired, but I still wanted to PB, and I went and did, I can't remember what I did the year after, which marathons I did, but it basically got to 2012 where I kept on running the same times. I kept running 2:37, like within seconds. And so I decided that I was going to go and try a different marathon and train like a different time of year, and go and do Houston in January 2012, which was the American trials as well. So I thought, oh, let's go that, be great to experience that. So I went there, and we thought maybe it was some weird thing that I just was obsessed with my watch or something, and I kept running, because 2:37 is exactly 6-minute miling or 3:45 whether it was something that was in my brain that I kept doing. So I didn't wear a watch, and I came around to the finish, and there's quite a long finish into Houston, and basically I came around the corner and I could see the clock and it was 2:37 again, and I was just like, this is insane. And then when I finished, it was all on concrete and my feet were ruined.
Yeah.
And I felt really disillusioned after that race, I've got to be honest. And then I carried on that summer, and I was like, one night on the track, I stopped. I had a really bad track session. I just stopped on the side of the track and took my shoes off and just walked back, and I said, I need to stop. I need to do something different. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all the training and the times and everything like that, and hitting times. And I didn't like it anymore. And so that's when I decided to do something different. And that's when I went and booked this trip to Nepal and was there for a couple of weeks doing this multi-day stage race, completely out of my comfort zone. And I came back from that after meeting lots of different people, like non-road runners, trail runners, which I'd never heard of, or ultra runners. And I entered Comrades. And then the next year I went to Comrades. So that was 2013. And that was my first sort of ultra. And that's when I changed, I carried on doing the marathons, but I was looking to do other stuff,
You came 7th, was it? Or something like that?
Yeah, I came 7th. That was my first ultra. It's amazing.
It's not bad, because in Comrades, it's iconic in the ultra marathon world.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know enough about it until I got there, and I realised what it meant to South Africans and ultra runners, and the experience was like amazing. I mean, it really, like lit a fire in me. Anyone who's done Comrades or has like watched it or seen any of it, like the start line, that gives you like goosebumps. And you know how they're so passionate about the race, and yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. It was really, it was hard. I mean, I'd be interesting to see how I'd feel about it now, because I've done much longer stuff, but at the time it was like, this is a big deal. It's 90k on road uphill. And it was and it was one of the hottest years. It was really hot, and it was like, my God, how am I going to do this? But I did it, and then that's it. I was like, right, what should we do next?
Was it the up or down version you did?
It was up.
It was the up. So you did the harder version, theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, they say harder. It is harder actually on day, but it's quicker to recover, because the down ruins your quads. Because because obviously you run from the coast inland, and then you have to get a bus back, and the bus, you're just like driving downhill all the way home, and you're like, my God, I've ran up here.
Yeah, that's immense. So that was your first ultra marathon, and you came 7th. What did you start to like about the trail ultra community that started to draw you in?
Oh, well, I mean, I think the thing is, so when I went to Nepal and I met the people that did, you know, stuff like that, was like, no one really cared about your PBs or what races you'd done or something. Everyone just talked about like what they'd seen that day, and you know, like, and sat around and had a beer afterwards. And there's no like bravado, there's no comparisons. It's I just felt like much more welcomed into that. I'm not saying that road running isn't like that, but it is a bit, especially sort of elite road running. I found it was a bit sort of dog eat dog, and you never really knew whether people were being honest with you. And you know, so that there's a lot of, you know, looking up and down, whereas with the ultras it was a bit like, oh, that's really cool, like just being much more, you know, welcoming. Whereas road running's a bit like, you do the race and then you maybe hang around a bit, then you go home. But with ultras and stuff and the trails, it was, I don't know, it's just much more of a community feel.
Yeah, everyone's, you know, the fastest runners are still at the end clapping the ones that are still out there coming in at the end, and you don't see that in the London Marathon. They've collected their prize check and gone to the pub where.
And exactly, and honestly, I think the ultras, like especially really long ultras, I don't think that you can really differentiate between like, oh yeah, the elite people at the front, but actually the people who are mid-pack or at the back, they are almost more hardcore, I think, because it's a long old day sometimes for some of these people, and I don't know if I'd want to be out there that long. But they'll, you know, people come in and they're just like, yeah, you know, what's the next race? And I think that is, I think that's amazing, because I think it's really hard for everyone. I'm not saying that 5Ks or 10Ks, but like, let's be honest, we're going to probably finish those. Whereas you do 100 or 50 or something, like all of us going into that race are thinking, well, I could not finish this today quite easily. And that's something you will.
Well, yeah, if you look at the recent ARC race, which obviously you were down there for, so many of the front runners, you know, didn't finish
or finished in the second half. Exactly. It means nothing. You know, it's so true. Like if you do a 5 or a 10K and the sort of people at the front, they're probably going to stay at the front, or, you know, they're going to finish, they're going to be alive at the end of it or not maimed. Whereas with the ultras, it's like, just like, I always say, so what's your aim? Like, well, I want to finish. And you don't say that when you do a 10K or a half marathon, do you really?
No, I mean, obviously, those that are starting out in the world of running, that is their goal, is to finish their whether it's their first 5K or whether it's their first 10K. And we've all been there. We all started somewhere.
Yeah.
But like you said, for those that are stepping into the ultra world, that is their first 5K, their first 10K. It's sort of, when you first step on those lines, it's like going back to the beginning again, almost. You know, that chance of failure is quite high.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter, but I'm just saying, it doesn't matter how good you are or anything can happen. You know, when I did MB, it was like, genuinely, I just want to finish it because I possibly couldn't. Yeah,
and obviously the weather conditions can change your whole day, can't it? You know.
Yeah, and also I think with ultras as well, a lot of it is your mental fortitude, like how good you are. Because you could be as fit as a flea, but the same in marathons, to be honest. But you can be as fit as a flea, but if you're not mentally on it and strong or having a bad day, then that could quite easily stop you from finishing or doing what you want. So you don't have to be the fittest, most prepared athlete in that respect. But if you're not mentally strong, then you probably won't finish.
And going back to the elite side of it, there's not many start lines in the road side of things where you can look to your left and say, oh, there's Damian Hall. Or, no, there's Holly. There's Killian, whatever, all on the same start line as the backpackers right there, So I find that's quite a nice thing as well, where I never see Mo Farah. He's way up. He's way at the front on the start line. All the competitioners and the elites are way up in front, where I'm towards the back of the 8th wave or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that then brings us on to your more recently races, and you won the autumn 100 miler, crewed by our good friend Gary House. Firstly, well done on that. Having to put up with Gary for over 100 miles is No,
he paced me for the last 25 miles, to be fair.
But he still had to see it.
Oh, I know. Exactly. And I really felt that my banter game wasn't at his best when I saw him. I really wanted to have a bit of a dance. At night, because it was like Saturday night. But it was a struggle. I could run, but that was about it. But yeah,
first of all, well done on that victory. And obviously your recent successes. I guess the race went to plan, but has there been any races recently that haven't quite gone to plan and you've learned stuff from?
Well, it didn't actually go to plan because I wanted to go for the record. And I'd openly said that because I thought, no, I'm going to say this is what I want to do. And the record is really bloody hard. So, the lady that has it, it's really good record. But I knew pretty early on that wasn't going to happen. I did London Marathon 2 weeks earlier and ran much quicker than I thought I was going to run because I was training for 100, not a marathon. And I think maybe that had taken out a little bit too much out of my legs. In hindsight, doing a marathon on road 2 weeks 400 probably wasn't a good idea, but so it didn't go quite to plan, but it was my B plan that it went. It was so I was pleased at the end of it. You've got to be pleased, haven't you, with 100. But in terms of races that haven't gone to plan, there's been many over the years. Like obviously all the marathons that I ran, which were exactly the same time within seconds. They were like, I know outwardly people will be like, oh, that's an amazing race or time, but I knew that I'd put in so much work and different preparation. I changed things to make myself quicker, and my half marathon had got quicker, which really suggested I could run quicker. So those were always disappointments to me. But I still value them because they're there and I've done them and they taught me things. But I guess the race that really was my nemesis, really, and I talk about it a lot, it was UTMB. Again, but to be fair, that race, I had no right really being in that race when I'd fractured my foot only like 6 weeks prior. I had no place being there, but for some reason, my body let me do it. And it's not something I would recommend people to do, but I spent a lot of time on a bike in the Alps because I stayed out there for a bit, maybe like a month before to train. And so the race was really hard, like mentally and physically really, really hard, and like properly broke me in many ways. I'm just going to open the door because this dog is
but
sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, there you go. And so that race was definitely not the race I wanted, but actually I was super proud of myself. And I think it's a really important thing to say to yourself sometimes. I was really proud of myself because I finished it and I got it done and I persevered despite feeling like the biggest pile of shit ever. I was being sick and had diarrhea from 20 miles in. I was so bad. There was so many people that really helped me in that race. Like my friend Sophie Grant, I don't know if you follow her, who's a great ultra runner. Like her and her husband she was doing the same race, and she ran with me for a bit because my head torch wouldn't work on the first night. I was really bad, and she stayed with me, and then she went on to do really, really well, like she always does. But and then they'd helped out with my sickness. They gave me anti-nausea tablets at Champex Lac, and it was just like, yeah, it was I could have easily stopped, but I didn't. And so therefore I always reflect back on that race whenever things get hard, because I just think, you know, I did that race feeling awful and it took me 30 hours, but I did it. So therefore I can probably do anything else.
You mentioned you had diarrhea. Did you have any Paula Radcliffe moments during that race?
Did I have any Paula Radcliffe? Are you joking? I had
Paula...
to change my shorts twice. All I did was shit all the way around. Like, no, it wasn't a Paula Radcliffe. That would have been a dream. No, I was shitting from 32k. Sorry,
I have been there, but not in UTMB, but I have been there where I have filled my pants because my tummy was upset, and it's not a pleasant feeling.
No, I literally had to change my shorts twice. They were that bad. The chafing was beyond.
Yeah, it is. It's horrendous chafing when it comes from that type of stuff.
Yeah. It's actually bad for you.
So, if you could go back and speak to the younger Holly about to take part in her first London Marathon, what would you tell her?
Oh, if I was taking part in my first London Marathon. So
if you were to go back in time to speak to the younger Holly.
Yeah, I've just got in on the ballot, which seems like no one has, but anyway.
Congratulations.
No, I mean, if I had, I am doing London Marathon, but all the people that haven't got in on the ballot, or it just seems like there's so many of them. So I'm one of these people say that I've just got in the ballot. I've never run a marathon before. It's in October. What would I tell myself? Probably wear suitable clothing, because I didn't.
Yeah.
But this is all stuff I think is much more, easily, readily available. I would get I would obviously need to start just getting used to running miles if you've never really, because there's a lot of people that have got a place who've never really done any running at all. They've just entered and really annoyed all the people that have been trying for years and years and years to get in. But if you've not started running, start running. If you are a runner and you've been running lots of marathons and it's your first London Marathon, just start getting. I mean, I would say as a beginner, you need something like a 16-week plan that sort of takes into account your lifestyle. Whatever that is, if you're a busy working person and you've got kids or you've got other responsibilities, you need to take that into account, and pick some races as preparation. So like pick a half marathon, maybe a 10k early doors. Always be more specific the closer you get to the race. So the 5 weeks before a race, be more specific to the distance and just increase your miles, and you should be absolutely fine. But definitely wear the right clothing, because it's like the right
make or break you.
It's so easy, but people make that mistake. Wear the right clothes and the right shoes and the right socks and you'll be fine, and practice your nutrition. Don't just start eating gels on the day, because that was the guy I ran with for the first London Marathon for quite a long time. He ran with held a banana the whole way. He never ate it. He just ran with his hand. So are you going to actually ever eat that? Not that I would ever eat a banana in a race. Like, eating fruit for me in a race is the biggest no-no. But yeah, I mean, so remember when I started marathons, we didn't have gels. It was Lucozade.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it. And you try and run with a bottle of Lucozade. I run past my friend's house, who was like the farm further down. And I used to say to her, can you leave a bottle of water or Lucozade out at the bottom of your lane? And I'll get it on the way out and I'll get it on the way back. There was no hydration pack, like that. I tell you what I did do was, God, this is all coming back to me. We did have those bottles. Do you remember those bottles? If you still get them, where you put your hand through them, the hole?
Yeah.
So I used to get those, and I'd get my dad's belts, leather belts, and I'd thread a couple through there and run with that. And then food, I had those Lucozade tablets. Do you remember you used to be able to get them?
Yeah.
They were like chalk in your mouth. So I'd have them. And then gel, then I sort of discovered gels, and it was High Five, and then I sort of started using them. But certainly in my first year, I didn't. I mean, people have so much information now. There's no excuse for some of this stuff. You should be able to find everything. But then I didn't. It was sort of like, give it a go and see what happens. But yeah, definitely get the right equipment.
So before we move on to the 10 quick fire questions, let's just talk about the community that you've helped to build within the ASICS Frontrunner scheme. I think we should mention that. For those that don't know what the ASICS Frontrunner community is about, just can you give us some bit of information on all that and what you manage?
Well, the ASICS Frontrunners are a global community. It's not just the UK. We've got like 30 countries now, and it's been going since 2010 in Germany. But in the UK, it's been 4 years now. And we are basically a group of ambassadors for the brand, for ASICS. So they are exclusive to ASICS, a bit like other running brands have now. Basically, our mission is just to get people moving, to get people running, and we just encourage people. And so our presence is felt at quite a lot of events. Well, again, the last 2 years it's been hard, but at events, at park runs, at lots of activations that we do all over. And I mean, if you go to many countries, you will see ASICS front runner teams. I mean, Germany, they're really well recognized. It's insane. I think there's like 150 of them. In the UK now, we have 54 just up recently. And so, yeah, we are just a running community, and our mission is just to encourage people to run and enjoy it and move. It doesn't have to be marathons, it doesn't have to be ultras, it doesn't have to be 5Ks, it can just be a mile. And so that's our mission.
And how did you get yourself involved in it?
So I was an athlete, a sponsored athlete for ASICS. Before that, I was with Saucony, and it was just by accident I got asked to step in for Tim Don, actually, who was a triathlete, to do a world record attempt to run around Mont Blanc as a relay. And they asked me if I could step in at the last minute, and this was for ASICS, and I wasn't with. Sorry, I just left Saucony, and so I went to this event with ASICS, and then they signed me after that as an athlete. So I was with them from I think it was 2014. So I've been with them since 2014. So I was an athlete, and then I worked for England Athletics at the time, and I got made redundant, and this job came along, and they said, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'll give it a go."
And the rest is history.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Right, so we'll move on to the 10 quick fire questions. All right, this often digresses anyway, and not always that quick, but I like to do them. So first of all, question number 1, what is your favorite snack on a long run or ultra marathon, one that you love to have?
Well, I think everyone knows this. It has to be a mini pork pie.
Oh, nice. Any specific type of pork pie?
Well, either a Melton Mowbray or the Sainsbury's ones. They're really good. Anything that's quite soft. Yeah. Like the really hard pork pies are not so good, but the soft mini pork pies are fabulous.
Good choice. Is there a favorite bit of kit you sort of need to take with you pretty much on all your races? Is it like a buff or a certain type of trainer shoe or hat or so, anything like that?
I will always be seen with my Sunto 9 watch, because I love it. I'm not affiliated to Sunto or anything. I've just always worn Sunto because I absolutely love their mapping app. So I can be anywhere in the world and jump out of the hotel or camper van and map a route and put it on my watch straight away, and then off I go. It doesn't have all the snazzy maybe stuff like Garmin might have, but for me, it's the mapping tool is amazing.
Excellent. Okay, Marmite, yes or no?
Yes, but I'm not crazy about Marmite. I wouldn't have Marmite. I have it in my drawer, but it's not something I have all the time.
If there was a movie about your life, who would you want to play you?
A young Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh, nice. Good choice. Good choice. What has been your favorite race ever so far?
Oh, that's so difficult.
She's just thinking, everyone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, because it's different. Right. Okay. Favorite, that's really difficult because there's loads of memorable ones, but favorite is probably, sorry, bear with me. Probably the Cotswold Way 100.
Nice.
My first 100. It was beautiful.
What or where is your happy place?
Nepal.
Nepal. A song that would describe you?
Oh God. Pete, what song would describe me? Rage Against the Machine?
What, Killing in the Name of?
Killing in the Name of, yeah.
I've got a couple of suggestions, but I wouldn't want to say it.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want, Pete.
No, go on, tell me.
I'm an Asshole by Dennis Leary.
Did you hear that?
What was that one again?
I'm an Arsehole by Dennis Leary.
Nice.
No, come on, a proper one.
Anything off the Amelie soundtrack?
Yeah, no, there's lots of things I like to listen to. I like the Jan Tierson's music from the Amelie soundtrack. I use that a lot on Instagram. It's just playful French weird music. But yeah, I don't know. Or something like from Rage Against the Machine. I love that.
Have you ever ranted during a run?
Have I ever what?
Ranced.
What's ranced? Oh,
That's
you
when you
mean
ru-
Gary?
Yeah, when you run dance during a run.
Oh,
Rant.
during a race.
Well, or during a run. Stopped and had a quick dance.
No, I haven't actually. Maybe I should. I know.
Yeah.
That's-
It'll
I-
open seriously. It'll open your mind to other things.
I mean, I sing. Like if something comes
Well, that's
on.
a start.
Yeah, okay. So if I got something in my ears, because I listen to, well, so me and Gary have really similar soundtracks on Spotify. We have like quite similar music taste. Same sort of we're coming from like raves and stuff. So because that's another thing that I did back in the day, probably more than any sort of training, going out to nightclubs. I think that's where I get my endurance from, if I'm honest, from staying up all night, you know, taking loads of synthetics and then coming back on a Sunday night. It just really helped my endurance. I sing.
That's a start. Seriously, once you've had a little dance during a run, it will open your mind to another thing. But what is your favorite cake?
Cake. Well, can I say a pastry?
Yeah, go on.
I love an almond croissant.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And do you have a bucket list race that you just want to do but you haven't done yet?
Western States 100.
Oh, nice. So moving on, that was our 10 quick fire questions.
That was quite quick.
That wasn't too bad actually.
Mm.
What's on for future races for you? What's your future calendar looking like?
Well, I've got in 3 weeks' time. Is it 3 weeks' time? On Sunday, Manchester Marathon.
Yeah.
And then I've got Brighton the weekend after, but that's work, so I'll be doing the 10K probably. But
Yeah.
running. But the main race I have is TDS, which is part of the UTMB series. Again, Gary's doing that, so we're going to take it down. And so that will be, I'll have done I've done CCC, UTMB, and then hopefully done TDS. So I just need to the OCC, then I've ticked them all off. And then I've got, I'm going back to the Hammond Line, which is what I did last year, which was
another one.
Loved that race. If anyone, the Albion races are interesting, I should say the least, but they're really good. And I want to go back because I got the women's course record, but I was really close to the men's course record. So I'd love to get the men's course record. Anyone's listening, get any men out to do that. So I've got that, then I've got TDS, and then I've got London Marathon, and I'll be in a new age group. So I'll be extra old. And then not extra old, but extra old. And then I've got Arc of Attrition in January for my sins.
You have, and I will see you there along with Gary.
I know. He's really annoying at the moment because he's like copying me and everything.
Well, I kept trying to convince him to do it, and he kept saying no because it's like too far south, or it's too cold for him, or it's too hot for him, or he'll come up with some excuse. And then when I posted that we were both on the start line, he then said, "Oh, so am I."
So are you doing 100?
Yeah.
Oh my word, it's insane. Have you been on that course?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that I've been down there every loads of years and seen it, and every time I'm like, that's simple. Got absolutely no problem watching them go through Portleven and then going to the pub. Absolutely no problem. I don't feel bad at all. And then something happened this year. I watched it, and then the next day, I'm on the sort of blower to Fergie, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to do it. I think he messaged me saying like, oh, you know, if there's any of our races you want to do, just let me know. And then he was giving me all these examples and none of them fitted because I've got other stuff on. And then I was like, well, I suppose I could do the Arc.
He's very convincing.
He is, yeah.
Ferg. Yeah, he's very convincing. He once made me, after I ran from North Wales to South Wales via the Glyndwr's Way and Offers Dyke, he convinced me to do the Plague straight after, the day after. Because I thought that was a bright idea, do a 100k race after 291 miles.
What, you actually did the race, you mean, the day after?
Yeah, it didn't go well.
No.
No, I got about 7 miles in, and I was like, that's enough.
It's supposed to be really good, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, one of their most
It is a
popular
really good. It's a really good weekend as well, just for drinking and everything else, like afterwards.
Yeah, I
Um,
know.
but
Oh, but I mean, the Cornish coastline in January as well. I mean, that's the killer. I think you're running more in the darkness, aren't you, than in
yeah,
the light?
yeah. I mean, they had a good year this year for weather.
Yeah, they did.
So
Half was
fingers
quite
crossed,
dry.
it's just as good this next year.
Well, you know it's going to be apocalyptic, don't you?
Yeah, it'd be like 2016. That was
Yeah,
a storm year that year as
yeah.
well.
Well, I've already told Gary that he needs to put a bit of timber on because I need him to pace me.
He's become a windshield.
Yeah, well, he said that he'd try and pace me at Manchester and hang on for as long as he could. And I said, the thing is, so you just need to be a lot bigger. You're absolutely no use to me because you're probably smaller than me.
Yeah, he probably is actually.
Yeah, he's
to be
such a
fair.
little wee man.
Moving on, do you have any words of advice for beginners that are just starting out in the running world?
Oh, well, it's just really obvious. Just really enjoy it and remember like why you've started it. I mean, I hope you started it for a good reason, not for a bad reason, not because someone's told you to do it or told you that, asked you how much you weigh to get on a treadmill. Don't, do it for the right reasons and never forget that reason. I know everyone says the why, but, remember why you started running because, it's something joyful and it makes you feel really good. Because I mean, how many of us go out for a run, no matter how long it is? It could be a mile, it could be 30 miles, and you feel most of the time better than when you started. And that's the whole point of running, isn't it? And if you get to a point where you're not feeling like that, then you need to maybe think about why. So just try and remember why you started and remember that pleasure you have, and also use it for like meeting up with friends. Don't always feel that you have to be going out running on your own or doing sessions. Do things like, I love doing stuff like running to somewhere and then maybe getting a train back or a bus back or someone picks me up, so running to somewhere for lunch, for breakfast, to meet a friend, or running back from somewhere. There's so many things you can do. Don't this is all the stuff that when I started running, it was all just like track sessions on a Tuesday, this. There's so many more fun things to do. There's so many great races to do. You don't have to do road races. You could do obstacle races. You could do park runs. You could do bark runs. You can do all sorts of stuff. So yeah, just pick the things that make you happy.
Brilliant. And if people don't know already where they can find you on social media, whereabouts can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram. I am Rush by Nature, and I'm the same on Twitter, I think, although I'm not that vocal. Oh, dog, sorry. I'm not that vocal on Twitter. And you can also find our website, which is again rushbynature.com, and that has lots of information about coaching, our programs, and our e-guides on training and lifting, because that's my other passion. And where you can find more information on there, and blogs and things like that.
Brilliant. Well, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you, Holly. We'll have a quick finish chat once I've paused the recording. But for now, thank you for joining me on the podcast. It's been absolutely amazing to finally catch up with you. All the best for your future races. Hope they go well. And I'll no doubt chat to you on Instagram at some point.
Thanks very much.
What an amazing chat that was. I do feel very honoured, humbled and privileged when I get these amazing humans onto my show for a chat. Holly is such a down-to-earth person and a fantastic runner. Hope you all enjoyed watching or listening as much as I did chatting to Holly. Please share, subscribe, like, review the podcast. If my feet could talk on any of the apps or however you watch and listen to it, it'd be much appreciated. But that is the end of today's episode. So thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Until next time on If My Feet Could Talk, I'm Owen, also known as the Ultra Running Matlow. Until next time.